Good afternoon, everybody. And what he found is fundamentally about four things about how leadership and success is changing around the world. It's changing in ways where we're seeing more collaboration than ever before. We're seeing more nurturing than ever before. We're seeing more transparency than ever before. And we're seeing more flexibility than ever before. And why this is so important to the people in this room is because leadership is something that our brands need. We have many clients around the world who ask us, how can our brands regain leadership? How can our brands keep leadership? How can our brands challenge the conventions? And for you as marketers and clients, you can think a little bit about two things during the course of this presentation. Looking at how people, ordinary people, have inspiration to use Athena doctrine values to change things for the better. You could think about that for your own organization internally. And secondly, you can think about how Athena values is driving collaboration, creativity, and success around the world, and how you can use those values to help your brand do exactly the same. But I do want to start this story with stories of inspiration from Japan, and I'm going to end with a story of inspiration from Japan. I don't need to tell any of you about the tragedy of March 11, just over a year ago. Just a horrendous time. But out of these difficulties, out of this tragedy, a strong story of hope came through. In a small town, fishing town, up in the north, I believe called Isinomaki, there was a factory that stood there for quite some time, which was specialized in making over 43 different types of canned seafood. And no employees were harmed during this crisis. But the factory was destroyed, completely obliterated. And as people came back to start to repair and to build and to renew their village, they started to find these little cans of hope. And they thought, what if we could salvage all these, get them back to Tokyo, and start selling them? We could raise enough money to rebuild the factory. We could raise enough money to indeed get our village back on the path again. So between March and I think the last was collected in middle of August, they collected over 800,000 cans of hope. And as they traveled from the north to Tokyo, messages of hope and inspiration were written upon them. So people would pass these messages on to other people, so they would get the word around that actually buying this can not only connects them with the village up in Tokyo, but other people who also want the same level of repair and renewal. These cans, out of the 800,000, 400,000 were successful, and I hear today that 200,000 of them were actually sold. Truly inspiring story from Tokyo, built around Athena values, flexibility, collaboration, nurturing. On the other side of the world, up in Iceland, there was another tragedy. But this time it was a man-made tragedy. The banks had got greedy. They had overexposed Iceland to financial trouble and created a huge bubble there. And once exploded, it wiped out a great deal of people's savings and personal wealth, their futures, their lives. To help chair the committee to rebuild the new constitution. And for the first time in the world, they decided to engage all 325,000 of the electorate in this by creating the first ever Facebook and Twitter-built constitution, by asking people to get on board, vote, contribute, and have a say in how their country is built. Again, Athena values of collaboration. So on opposite sides of the planet, two different catastrophes and tragedies, but similar reactions of people's response driven by flexibility, nurturing, collaboration, and transparency. And this is at the heart of the Athena doctrine. The Athena doctrine is named after the Greek goddess of war, but she was known for her wisdom and divine intelligence. She was a sensible one, and if you want a god of war, you want a sensible one. She had complete balance in the way she looked at the world, and that's why we've named this doctrine after her. Now, you'll be happy to know that this study, these values, are based on 64,000 people in 13 countries. Now, let's compare you to the rest of the planet. life will be better for me, my children, than it is for me. 51% of the world disagreed. Fundamentally, the world has anxiety about where we are going. Wars, terrorism, global warming, the state of our leadership, corruption, banking collapses, financial bubbles. They've taken a heavy toll on how people want to see their leaders act. And the global referendum of men, I'm interested to see that most people kind of sat on the fence on here. But speaking on behalf of men, we seem to be doing a bad job. Over the planet, most people feel that men have not been doing, really what they should be. So men haven't been doing a good job. How would things change if they thought more like women? If they embraced their femininity, would that make things better? And most of the world says yes. So importantly, the Athena doctrine isn't about men versus women. It's about how you think. It's how you approach things. It's the values you take forward as a person, as a leader, as a brand, as a company, or as a nation. Those values can be expressed by men or women. And I will share with you some examples of men doing great things and women doing great things. So it can't be a male versus female debate. It's a feminine versus a masculine values debate. Now, to get to this path, we first needed to really understand what are feminine values, what are masculine values. We asked them a very simple question. We gave them a whole list of values. Didn't tell them why. Here's a whole list of values. We just wanted them to assign whether these values were masculine, feminine, or neutral. So 32,000 people around the world. And this is a result. The ones on the right, feminine. Here on the left, masculine values. That's part one of our study. Then we asked some questions to the other 32,000 people. We said, here are some values. Please tell us what drives leadership, morality, happiness. And by asking those two questions for two separate groups, we can then put them together to understand what are the values that drive leadership, morality, and happiness, and ultimately success. And here's the first of the charts. Often easier if I'm closer. It's very hard to point up here, but I'll try my best. On this chart, you see that there are the things on the left here are feminine values. The things on the right are masculine values. And the higher up the chart they go, the greater the importance in driving that area. So if we talk about leadership, and if we ask 32,000 people around the world, today in your place, what is important about leadership? What drives leadership? We see there are some things which we might have traditionally thought were interesting. Being aggressive, being proud, being independent. Perhaps, if you were American, the George Bush way of leading. I'm the decider. Those values, it's not like they're not important. To be a leader, you have to make decisions. But what's more important is that needs to be balanced by the feminine side, the Athena side. Look what's up the top. Being expressive, flexible, patient, intuitive, passionate. Ask yourself this. If your brand wants to lead, how many of those values do you have in your brand? We now are seeing this as an emerging trend around the world. Some more examples. These gentlemen from Sweden, they are the people who started a company called Bambuser. And it's one of the social media platforms that's truly revolutionizing the world. Their belief is they want to democratize news channels. So they created the world's first application which allows you to broadcast live onto Facebook or onto Twitter. So the people who got hold of this technology first were people like in Egypt and Syria who wanted to broadcast to the world the trouble that they saw, the leadership that was failing them. But it's technology like this that is liberating the world and helping people express their Athena values. The search of happiness, something that we're looking for in the room. We feel that sort of life is not getting better, and we need to have more. The search of happiness. Happiness is definitely not aggressive. It's definitely not analytical. It's definitely not decisive or proud. It's all driven by loyalty, patient, expressive, passion, flexibility. And so that fundamentally means happiness comes when you invest in others more than yourself. So being proud and independent isn't a driver of happiness, as much as it is being loyal to others. It's a very interesting thought for brands who want to bring happiness into people's lives. This guy picked up on it. He's in Kenya, very smart guy. Now, he runs Safaricom, which is one of Kenya's largest mobile phone operators. And he saw a business problem of corruption and greed. If you want to get a good or service from one side of the country to the other, along the way, there's many hands. So he created a mobile coupon, which can be SMSed or sent from one mobile phone to another. And so when that coupon was exchanged, you could go redeem that good or service without ever having to worry about the middlemen in between, cutting out corruption in the country. When he asked, why did you do this? Why did you set up doing this service? And he said, if it's good for my country, it'll be good for my business. Athena values. And interesting enough, when we try and correlate this with the wealth of the country, how fast the country is growing in GDP, we see that there is actually a strong correlation in balance. The more a country's population is balanced between masculine values and feminine values, the higher the propensity for GDP growth. And it's perhaps even clearer on this particular chart, where we look at quality of life on the same perspective. Quality of life in a country, again, when there is more balance between feminine and masculine values in the people, things are better off. So ask the same question for your brand. Have you got balance in your brand between feminine and masculine values? Because if the population of the world is anything to go by, your brand will be better off and have more leadership and more success and more creativity and more followers if it does. I promised I'd start and end with stories of inspiration from Japan. And this story is from a lady, Yamaguchi-san. And when she asked those people, well, we're doing all this work for developing countries, have you ever been there? They all answered no. None of them had ever been to a developing country from Washington, D.C. And she thought that was fundamentally wrong, that you would start to try and change the world. She was going to build the world a better place from the ground up from Bangladesh. She didn't even know how. So once she got there, she started to look around. She went to a market, and in a market, she found this people using this hemp bag. So here is a material that was good, plentiful, works, but actually was better for the planet. And she hit upon the idea, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not just going to build those bags for Bangladesh. I'm going to teach Bangladesh how to make world-class quality bags so I can sell them in Tokyo. And off she went. Now, her company is built on Athena values. Her brand, Mother House, is built on Athena values. The first order of bags, 150. And that was about 2006. 6 years later on, in Japan, she has 6 stores, and she sells over tens of thousands of bags each year. A true inspiration of how you can take your beliefs, your values, and do 2 things. Help improve the lives of people in Bangladesh. Her factory is well voted as being one of the best employers. It teaches new skills and gives people pride and hope about quality. Second, you can build a great brand and a great business in the same time. Those 2 things are strongly connected. And that, my friends, is the heart of the Athena doctrine. The Athena doctrine is, again, flexibility, transparency, nurturing, and collaboration. Those are the values that are unlocking innovation, success, profitability all around the world. We see it in our data, and we see it in the inspirational stories of people on every continent, and here in Tokyo as well. And so I end with the question that I started with. How is your brand doing? How is your brand built? How is your marketing department, your innovation department, your research department? How is that built? Is it in balance? If it has that balance, can we get more innovation, creativity, and spontaneity out of it? Because if you can, you'll be embracing the operating system of the 21st century. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time today. It's been my pleasure. Now, how are you back?